It's Chris.
Okay, hi Chris. We have Bob. We on at the moment.
Yep, no, this is Jonathan. I'm here.
Jonathan's here, and I believe Tony is away this week, so he won't be joining. So it's all yours, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Just bear with me. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:01. Announcement: this meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, pursuant to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have suspended public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. We are currently meeting remotely, and as such, all votes will be taken by roll call in accordance with Regulation 940 CMR 29.10 of the open meeting law. We're going to start off with department presentations. Tom, if you want to go over the Otis capital needs.
Sure. Before we get there, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I had asked Cheryl to be on, and also Marty Vicky. He's the principal at C.A. Crowley, the engineering firm that's under contract to do the design and bidding and administration of the HVAC project. I wonder if we could take them first.
Sure.
Cheryl or Marty, are you there?
Yes, this is Marty. I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay. So Marty, the committee has had a chance to hear from Cheryl about the project. In addition, last Saturday morning, they had a chance to walk through the library, take a look at the system, ask some questions. I'm happy you were able to make it tonight, so the committee can ask some technical questions that would be outside of my ability to answer. So maybe Mr. Chairman, I'll let the committee hand it back to the committee to ask some questions if they have any.
Sure. Does anyone on the committee have questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I guess my to start this off, so to speak, my first question to Mr. Vicky would be, what's wrong? In essence, where does the existing system fall short? And is I guess I don't know if obviously I haven't had much of a chance to get into it, but is the estimate that we're currently working on seem to be a reasonable solution still?
Sure. No, actually, probably the best question we could ask about the system. As far as the condition of the system and how we stand and what's wrong with it, with the exception of the recently installed boilers and circulator pumps, the remaining part of the HVAC system for the building is essentially was installed in 1994. So that puts it, 25, 26 years old. Normal life expectancy for that equipment is about, depending on the equipment, it's between 15 and 20 years. So we're beyond the normal life expectancy of all the equipment in the building. There are several cases where we have control issues in the building, either controls not working correctly, or in some cases, it appears we have controls fighting each other. We'll have the heating control trying to fight the cooling controller and vice versa. So that leads to climate issues throughout the building. along with some possible ventilation issues that we want to review. So again, with the exception of the boiler and water heater, essentially everything in the building should be replaced due to condition, due to age and function. We believe the construction budget at this point, we've gone back and forth for a couple of different modes, but from the original study that was done, I believe it was 315,000 was the construction budget estimate for that portion. And that seems to be valid. We actually had the opportunity to be out to the library the last 2 days to do some more detailed site investigation work. So we're able to pinpoint a lot of the problems, verify some of our design opportunities, and how to improve the systems as we move forward. Essentially, for the proposed system, it's going to be very similar to the system that's there, almost an in-kind replacement. But we do have some opportunities to improve on ventilation, improve on performance, and definitely improve on the control side of it. So the control system will be completely new, be integrated system to improve the comfort level throughout the building.
All right. Thank you. I definitely say that it appears as if the control system is lacking, and that represents a fair amount of the issues that they seem to be experiencing there. I guess for the heat aspect of it, the new boilers, existing boilers, they'll be more than sufficient to cover the heat load of the building. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And actually, I didn't specifically mention the fin tube radiation, which is the permanent heat running around the building. For all intents and purposes, that is in good condition, and the plan was that could remain. We didn't see a lot of need to replace that, other than the control devices for those. So the fin tube radiation that you see running around the perimeter of the building in certain areas, the plan was that could remain also.
Gotcha. And actually, that was one of my questions. Was currently, there's only the one circulator that's pushing the supply out to all the fin tube radiation. Is it zoned with zone valves out, in the individual areas, or I guess how is that system controlled currently?
Correct. Yeah, there are actually two main circulator pumps in the boiler room. Only one runs at a time. The other one is a redundant pump. So there are zone valves scattered throughout the building to control the perimeter fin tube radiation. And each of the air handler units have a three-way hot water control valve on those to control it. The system that serves the lower level children's area actually has 3 hot water coils installed in the duct to give you a little better zoning. And those also have the three-way hot water control valves on those. One of the issues we're finding is you could have multiple thermostats in one area. One could be a heating thermostat, and one could be a cooling thermostat, and they don't necessarily talk to each other. So you could run into the case, and as a matter of fact, I was on site Wednesday morning, still relatively cool out, probably 47, 48 degrees. And the AC unit for the lower level was running at full capacity, and the fin tube radiation was on at the same time for that space. So it's the control interference such as that is leading to some of the comfort issues and control problems.
And that doesn't really speak much for efficiency either.
No, it's not helping the the electric bills at the end of the month by any means.
No. So the cooling aspect, the condenser capacities, and is that? I mean, are those not quite up to handle the load of the building, or is that kind of more of a delivery issue as well?
The condensing units seem to be of adequate size. There's some concern as far as how they're operating right now. They're in pretty poor condition, the exterior condensing units, all except for one of them. But the actual sizing of them seem reasonable at this point. We haven't come into anything that would require us changing the capacity size of it. We are doing a ventilation review at this moment just to make sure we're up to speed on the outdoor air amount and occupancies in the space. So barring anything changing on that, we think the capacity should be adequate.
All right, but is is it proposed to actually replace those units, the condensers?
Yeah, all the condensing units would need to be replaced. There is one condensing unit that was installed, I think it was 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And that one we're looking at possibly being able to retain that one, but all the other ones are in pretty poor condition and should be replaced. There's actually one that was damaged. It looks like from snow falling from the roof. And most of the other ones have surpassed their life expectancy.
And I'm gonna take a guess that none of those are probably variable frequency.
Correct. Yeah, they're all constant volume. R22, which is a refrigerant now, which has been phased out. So from an efficiency point of view, they're not helping you at all, and also from a environmentally friendly arrangement, they're not the best we could have.
Okay. So as far as what about and you touched on it, outside air ventilation. I know seems to be on the lower level, especially. That could be something that would need to be improved.
Correct. Yeah, we're looking at the options for that. It's kind of a double check we're doing. One was the initial design. Can that volume still handle the current, today's standards? And two, is it operating correctly? There's some damper actuators which would allow the air to enter the building that may or may not be functioning. So as part of our scope, we were looking at replacing the actuator that controls that damper, just to make sure it functions properly and verify the amount of air that we need to bring into the building. And part of our energy savings analysis that we're looking at is, can we improve on economizer, which is essentially the unit using more outdoor air when the conditions allow. For example, if you have a 58-degree day outside, but you need cooling in the building because you have, sun load or an internal load with a lot of people in there, economizer would allow you to use the free cooling from outside rather than run the condensing unit. So it's an energy savings that we're looking at. In some cases, it's not feasible just due to the physical restraints around the unit, ductwork size, louver size, that type of stuff. But where possible, we're trying to incorporate that for additional energy savings as the system, runs through its life.
All right. So I guess, especially with the cooling end of things, since we are going to be changing the condensers. Is there? Well, I guess, would it make more sense to evaluate, air sealing and insulation to a degree to possibly reduce our cooling load? I mean, do we have an opportunity of spending maybe $10,000 in glazing and air sealing and saving $20,000 worth of equipment?
Again, a good question. I would always recommend that the building envelope be as good as it can be. Quite often, the cost benefit for a window replacement or an exterior building envelope isn't cost effective if it's only being done to offset the HVAC cost. It's obviously a benefit to the HVAC system, but quite often that has such a long payback, it's not cost effective to do it just for that reason. If you were replacing the windows anyways due to age or condition, then obviously that factors in as a much better equation for payback. But typically to do it just for the HVAC system, the payback is usually stretched out either right at or beyond the life expectancy of the new equipment.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I don't know if anybody else does when, any windows may have been replaced recently, or if those are older than I am. I would tend to think that, I guess, is there in the circumstance you're speaking, are we talking replacing windows from 20 years ago would kind of be a net, draw, or replacing windows from 50 years ago?
Sorry. I believe the majority of the windows are double pane windows, so they look to be replaced. I'm guessing in the 20-year range rather than the 50-year range.
Okay, I got you.
So they're not. Other than the windows at the main entrance may be different. The decorative windows on the side lights of the door, and the windows in the very top storage room, I think those are single panes, but I believe the majority of the other ones are double pane windows.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
I think there was an engineering study done on that building, Tom, back when we did like the Sugden blocks, the senior center, all town buildings.
Yeah, yes, that's right, Mr. Chairman. There was a study done. There were a couple of studies done, actually. One before I arrived, and then there was another study done after I arrived in 2018. It was a preliminary design study that yielded the cost estimate that was issued in 2019. A couple of those studies were included in the RFQ for designer services, which I think Mari would have taken a look at.
Yes, yeah, we do have those, particularly the 2018 one.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I guess I didn't. Yeah. I flipped through and I didn't. Well, I guess what did I see? I saw where they went through the mechanical systems, but I guess I didn't see, or nothing jumped out at me regarding the overall, I guess, building envelope or any of the other components.
I think there was an engineering study, Jonathan, done in like 2014. I was on the board of selectmen at the time, especially for the Sugden block, that stated how much that building needed. I know we did the library too. I used to have a copy. I don't know where that is anymore. So, but maybe the administrator can get that to us. It's got to be somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be just out of curiosity at some point. I'd like to see that.
I have a question about the current unit that's down in the basement. That unit, can that be retrofitted to save money with new internals?
It's possible. Is this the large unit in the boiler room?
That's correct.
Yes. We're looking at that for an option for all the units, actually. All the units are kind of modular units, so you can piece different sections together as you go through. And it's the moving parts that have the life expectancy that's shorter than others. For example, the one in the basement, you have a fan section, you have a filter section, which really has no moving parts. So other than exterior corrosion or physical damage to a section like that, there's a possibility that could remain. So we're actually going through the pricing exercise now of what we can do in order to change just the moving components, which would essentially be the coils, the fans, and the associated controls with those, and leave the casings, if you will, in place, to see if there's a benefit to do it that way. The unit that's up in the attic, I believe it's, if you go up the old staircase, that's at the very top there, that's one we're looking at very closely, because right now we would have to do some physical demolition of the wall opening of that little hatch door in order to get that unit out and the new one in. It's just not big enough to bring a new unit in. So we're looking at if we can do component replacement on those items. But that's a good point. That's a good opportunity to save some money, and you still get to replace the critical features of that unit. And a filter rack is basically just a sheet metal box. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong with it, providing it's not damaged now. So we are looking at that, going through that exercise.
Okay. And question, one more question is the new Rage is all mini splits. Is that an option for this building, or it's just not going to have the cooling capacity?
Mini splits could work in certain arrangements. It'd be a little more invasive as far as the building finishes in order to run piping around in different units. The system that's there now, the hot water and chilled water system, is a pretty robust system, pretty durable. Again, these are all 25, 26-year-old stuff. We're doing a lot of the mini splits and the variable refrigerant flows, heat pumps. Those systems, the life expectancy is a little shorter on those, probably 15 to 18 years. And you have some possible supply issues down the road with those. So I don't want to say they're not a great fit, but for this particular building, with the impact on the existing finishes, it looks like keeping with a hydronic and an air system would be the best bet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from any other members?
Yeah, I got one quick question, Chris. Are you going to be removing and replacing the existing ductwork, or is that something you guys can work with?
No, our intent is that all the existing ductwork could remain. We'd want to test it as part of the contractual work once it gets up and running, just to make sure it's there. But the intent is to try to leave everything we can.
And the other question, it's a quick question, is was there going to be a thorough walkthrough given to the maintenance guys? So whoever's going to be checking in on that system is going to be well up to speed on it. Is that something you guys had already figured into this?
Yeah, typically in the construction documents, when it goes out to bid, we'll include some fixed time, and it's usually a 6 or 8 hour period for training of the maintenance folks on the equipment. And then we have a second session for training on the control side. And we can modify that time frame however we think is necessary in order to go through it. But definitely at the end, we want to make sure that the installing contractors and the manufacturers give the training to the folks who are going to be operating it. Otherwise it doesn't benefit anyone. If it's not running properly at that point, it doesn't help out. At the end, we also require operating and maintenance manuals. So there'll be a full set of all the documents from the equipment left on site, along with as-built drawings to show exactly where everything was, how it's laid out. And that includes the sequence of operation for the units. So someone could go back through and check that document and say, when it's 20 degrees outside, the unit should do this, this, and this. And when it's 80 degrees outside, it should do this, this, and that. Kind of just a step-by-step walkthrough to look at the unit to make sure it's operating correctly.
I got another question, Mr. Chairman, if it's open.
Go ahead. Yep.
So, is there any any possible way of staging the proposed work? Is there any manner in which this could be split up to be done in different time periods, or with different areas, if you will?
We could. I mean, the project can essentially be phased. The systems are localized, so if you replace the indoor air handling unit and that outdoor condensing unit, that's one system that can work independently of everything else in the building. The one concern is phasing it obviously adds additional cost to the overall project when it's done, but understanding there are budget restrictions on a yearly basis or quarterly basis, however it's set up. But the project could definitely be phased if that's a goal or requirement.
Yeah, I'm just seeing big picture, seeing what may be available for options, and what may if there's any portion of it that would lend itself to that, just so we can keep that in the back of our head if need be.
Yep, but definitely, I mean, we'd want to do one complete system at a time. So you take supply air unit 1 and that corresponding condensing unit at the same time, but the next unit could be done the following year or whatever the phasing works out. So the current system works well for that type of plan.
Along those lines, I have one quick question. Tom had said that you guys felt pretty comfortable with the number of 315, and I understand this is construction, and there's always bound to be some kind of something's always bound to raise the price on something. But you guys feel fairly comfortable that, barring any serious issues, this could be brought in pretty much close to budget.
Yeah, we've gone through our cost estimate, and the more information as we get in further in the design, the more we're developing it. But we feel that 315 is a pretty solid number for the cost we're seeing coming in right now. No big jumps in equipment costs over the last 6 to 7 months, even with the COVID requirements. It's more of a time frame issue more than a cost issue. A little dependent on bidding climate. But even with the COVID restrictions going on, there's a lot of construction happening. A lot of the contractors are busy, which can impact the price. But barring you have highs and lows normally in the construction field. So as that levels out, we can get better and better prices. But we feel that 315 is a pretty realistic number at this point.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I actually have a follow-up question. On the top floor of the new addition, the newer addition, on the library, that one that you said, the air handler upstairs that you want to look at retrofitting versus taking it out because there would be some demolition.
Yep.
Can we use mini splits on that level? Would those work there?
We'd have to take a look at the ventilation requirement. The mini splits would provide just the heating and cooling, wouldn't provide any ventilation air. So we'd have to make sure that works into that component too if the retrofit doesn't play out.
Okay. And any rebates on installing the system?
We may have some on the condensing units if we go to an ultra high efficiency. And again, as we get into it a little bit more, we can explore that. Typically, the rebate would be the cost differential between a standard efficiency unit and the higher efficiency. So you get the benefit of the high efficiency unit, and in a lot of cases, the rebate will pick up the cost difference between those. So once we get the final selections on the unit, we can verify that.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I'm going to recognize Selectman Woodbury.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the architect on this. One quick question. Would it be of value to do a Hertz test on that building?
It could be done, yeah. I mean, there's value in that, yes.
Well, the value is it actually would give us a volume needed, what size condensers you would need. I know that as we did the walkthrough, when you walk into the front entryway, the ceiling had fallen down,
Yep.
stuff like that, along with, and I know the stained glass windows, I know the other windows have been changed. The stained glass, I believe, is still single pane on that portion. But I know with the Hertz test, you're going to, and actually there's some energy savings we can do through Mass Save or through some of the other stuff that's out there. Because we just did an energy upgrade on a lot of the buildings with the windows and stuff. So I just think that, if we got air loss, obviously it's reducing what that unit now, even though it's of age, can't keep up if there's a loss of it. So and it's not very expensive. And I think, anytime we do that, that would have been the first thing I tackled in any building. But I'm just curious if there's a value to that. Thank you.
Yep. And we are doing load calculations on our end to verify equipment sizing. So, condenser unit size, air handle unit size, air volumes, all that. We're looking at it. But we're not taking the specific look at, if you upgraded, 10% of the windows to this value, what the differential would be. But for the mechanical side, we are doing those load calculations. Absolutely.
No, and I understand that. We just put 2 high efficiency boilers in there, which we've done in every building now, and they're only going to be as efficient as any loss within the building. So we go to the high output, high intensity boilers in our buildings, but yet if the envelope itself it has a factor loss to it, whatever that factor is, those boilers actually work harder than an old boiler would to keep up. So I just think there's a lot of value to that because we've invested hundreds of thousands in that building, and that's one thing we never really took into consideration. Which unfortunately I wasn't involved, but that would have been the first thing I did. But it's just some ideas.
Yep. No. The building envelope is definitely the critical component of it. If you're looking to improve efficiencies or so, that's kind of the starting point. I agree.
Yeah.
One more
Any
question.
other questions? Sure.
So I get, it was Vicky, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So you've personally been down in the boiler room?
Yes. Yeah, a couple times.
All right. So couple specific questions. Where does the expansion tank currently? Is that in that first hallway before you get to the boiler room?
Correct. Yeah, it's tucked way back in the corner of that hallway or first room before you get into the boiler room.
Okay. Yeah. No, I saw that, and the the size of it. I kind of I assumed it was a buffer tank right away, and then I was as I was walking out and driving away, it dawned on me that I didn't see anything as far as an expansion tank. So is that appropriately sized for the amount of fluid that system has?
It's not undersized. I can say that with confidence from just looking at it. And that was my first thought on it too. It looks big, just from a experience point of view. We haven't done any, we really didn't look at it in any detail, but expansion tanks, I mean, bigger is better, if you will, to some extent. Right. The downside of that is obviously there's a cost involved with a bigger tank versus a smaller tank, and the physical room it takes up. But from a performance point of view, probably very, very minimal impact on it. But it might be a little big for that type of building. Yeah. My gut feeling would be, again, we haven't calculated it or looked at it in any detail, but it is striking when you walk down that room.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, it's as long as the pressure in it's set correctly, you're much better off to go a little over than be under.
Yeah, and I did trace it out just for curiosity. It is tied into the suction side of the pump, which is the critical tie-in location for those. So other than the physical size, nothing jumped out at me that would be problematic.
Yep, I did see that. It was I think it's pumped a little ways or piped in a little ways away from the makeup.
Yeah.
But it's not hydraulically it's pretty damn close.
Yep. No, I'd agree. I think that's fine. And just to build on that, again, I don't want to take up the whole meeting time. Currently, the air handler units have three-way control valves on those. Our intention was we were going to replace those with two-way control valves. That way we can take advantage of the variable frequency drives that are on the pumps in the boiler room. Right now, those pumps don't ramp down at all to save energy because the three-way valve requires the same amount of flow regardless of what it's doing. So if we replace those with two-way valves, we can take advantage of the efficiencies with the variable frequency drives on those pumps now.
Makes sense. So and to that end, the only two things that that struck me as worth another or a little further evaluation was the orientation of those main pumps and the size of the boiler loop where it tied, before it reached the primary loop.
Okay, yeah, we didn't look at the boiler system too much, but we do have all that information. We documented it while we were there, just for reference. So something we can definitely take a look at.
Yeah, I think that'd be warranted. As I mean, when I was there, the circulator was making an awful lot of noise, and usually that's not a great sign.
No, but I was at the site probably a month ago, 6 weeks ago, also for our initial site visit. And at that point, one of the boilers was removed. I think it had failed, so it was being replaced under warranty. But there seemed to be airbound or air entrapped within the system throughout. And I think when they replaced the boiler, it's my understanding they were able to purge a lot of that air out of the system, and it seemed to be functioning a lot better when I was there yesterday, day before. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. No, I guess I'm more used to residential sized circulators, if you will.
Yeah.
But I know that one of the things they always make a note of saying on those is you want to have the rotor shaft perpendicular to the floor, and however it's plumbed in. Is that something that holds true with these size circulators as well?
It does, depending on the type. If it's a wet rotor pump, the orientation of that is critical because that's how you would cool the bearing in the shaft. I'd need to check on those. I think we have the model number of what was installed, so we can confirm that either way. Wasn't something that we were looking at initially, but we have the information. We can go through and just confirm we're in the right location for that.
Yeah, no, I just take advantage. I may as well take advantage of you guys if you're there doing the work.
Yeah. If we're there, I mean, we've done a pretty detailed takeoff. So yeah, I mean, I think we have a pretty good handle on the building. So anything that we can offer, definitely will.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think that more or less wraps up what I can come up with for the time being.
Okay.
If I could offer one more thing, if you don't mind, real quick.
Sure. Absolutely.
Just for COVID related items, I don't seem to be able to get off a committee meeting without speaking of it for other items. What we're looking at is trying to improve the amount of outdoor air to the space as much as we can reasonably. Energy conservation will come back into play, within the next year or so. So we want to be cautious of that. But we're also looking at upgrading the air filtration on these units to a MERV 13 Again, these are all pretty low cost or no cost changes. We're going to replace the filters anyways. Let's improve them up to a MER 13, which is one of the ASHRAE recommendations for COVID-19. It just cleans the air much better than a standard, 1 inch or 2 inch throwaway filter, or MERV 8 or somewhere around that range. And the controls will be more accessible, more user-friendly. One of the recommendations ASHRAE has for building operation is that you do a pre and post occupancy flush, essentially starting the systems, 2 hours or so before the building becomes occupied and running them for 2 hours after the building shuts down. It just helps purge the air out, get some more fresh, clean air in the building. So through the new filtration, the outdoor air mounts, and the accessibility of the controls, where the run times can be adjusted relatively easily, we'll put the building in a much better place from a COVID point of view also.
It's good to hear.
And actually, that reminds me of one quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Will there be any, as you referenced bringing in the outside air, is there any energy recovery capability there? And is that something that potentially be looked at?
We're looking at them on 2 of the units, 2 of the larger units. And it's a little bit of a cost benefit analysis we're going through now. Physical space is at a premium where these units are. They're all tucked in pretty tight. So if we can incorporate an energy recovery core or even a wheel, I don't think we get a wheel in there just due to size. We would make that recommendation in order to get it in there, but we may be limited on space. I mean, unless we really get crazy and relocate units and stuff, but that would really drive the cost up beyond the budget. So we are looking at it, and we're talking with the manufacturer to see how we can incorporate that within that same footprint if possible.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Vicky? All right. Hearing none, I want to thank you for your time, Mr. Vicky, tonight, and we greatly appreciate you spending it with us.
Great. No, thank you. I'm sorry if I dragged your meeting out at all, but this is a good project. It's a great building, and I'd like to see you get some more usable life in it for the next foreseeable future. So looking forward to getting this one completed.
Thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along, we're going to do the Otis capital presentation. Tom, are you doing that?
Sure, I can kick it off, Mr. Chairman. So Todd Miller, the planner, is on the phone, and he'll get into some of the details here, but just as a quick recap, the e-permitting project initiative is right now in the review stage. The proposals were opened, the technical proposals were opened last week, I believe, or the week before. So we're making our way through reviewing the individual vendor proposals, and I'm expecting when we select a finalist, we'll see in the price proposal both a one-time cost for implementation as well as the annual cost associated with maintaining the license. So I have a placeholder, just as a reminder, I have a placeholder in the Otis expenses account for that recurring cost. The one-time startup cost, I'm expecting to pay out of free cash. That's why if you look at the 5-year plan, you see TBD, just because we don't know what the number is going to be. But that's the first item here, and then the other 2 items, the map plotter and the printer scanner. The intent here is to purchase these pieces of equipment via a lease purchase arrangement, 5-year lease purchase arrangement. In the costs for the annual lease payments, I also have incorporated into the Otis operating budget. So that said, I think I'll just hand it over to Todd. Todd, you there?
Yes, sir.
You wanted to share with the committee your thoughts on these items?
Absolutely. I'm not entirely sure how many members of the board here have had the chance to read the narrative that was drafted earlier, but I can touch upon some of the broader strokes, and then as we finish up, I can field some questions afterwards. As Tom alluded to before, this particular set of equipment, this printer and scanner, as well as plotter, these are really core items for the rollout of this e-permitting initiative, in the sense that this expands Otis's capacity to both print full 24 by 36 inch plans on the fly and as needed, as well as accommodate all of the further land use affiliated permits and procedure items that go through Otis. So, for example, the major thing that we get from this is improved efficiency, in the sense that it makes the lives of the applicants easier, as well as makes Otis operations far more efficient, and by extension, we garner more productivity from them. If you take a look at the narrative really quickly, I do allude to that very often we receive incomplete applications from applicants who only provide maybe 3 copies of the particular plan they would like to see submitted, which means that when we see these plans, we have to contact the applicant or inform them in person later on in the year that they don't meet the required number of plans submitted, which is 7. So we would have to then turn these folks away before and have them go get 4 more copies of this plan at sometimes substantial expense before we could proceed their application further through Otis. Here, we would be able to simply copy and scan their 24 by 36 inch plan here on the spot for a nominal fee and allow that application to proceed forward through the process. Additionally, when it comes to the scanner and copier, it makes it far more efficient for all of the land use affiliated departments within Otis to operate in a way that improves board efficiency. For example, with Conservation Commission, I allude to the meeting from July, I believe it was July 27th or some such. He had our conservation agent, George Russell, had to spend over 3 hours printing out 48 copies of full-size color page copies of existing site conditions for each packet that the members receive. In total, it was 48 pictures for all 5 board members. So it ended up being 240 full-size color pictures that had to be printed out one at a time, which takes an egregious amount of time that a man of George Russell's skill set is better used elsewhere. This here, the color is important in that, for example, with site conditions, if we're looking at a wetlands feature or if there's algae present, it is very important to be able to discern if that algae is blue or green or blue-green or brown. All of those colors show up as gray in a black and white photograph. And this information is distinctly germane to the Conservation Commission's ability to levy effective decisions. So on top of that, I did want to continue going over those packet creation, in that he spent well over 3 hours on that one day, just on that one simple task that is very easily automated with the right tool. This scanner and this copier is very much the right tool. It has all the features that we need and none of the bells and whistles that we have to pay for that we won't use. Every single item there is priced the most economically, as well as being the best fit for what Otis requires as we transition into e-permitting. If anyone has any further questions, I would be more than happy to take them.
Anyone have any questions for Todd?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you.
Okay.
Todd, the plotter unit, is that going to have scanning capability as well? Are you going to be able to scan 24 by 36 sheets?
Yes. Sorry to interrupt, but yes, sir, that is the ability that it has.
All right, so that's that by itself is a very worthwhile capability, and that actually that'll lend itself to being able to electronically archive all a lot of any of the existing records that's currently in ODIS.
That is correct. Eventually, the longer term, this is beyond a medium term goal, is to create a digital archive of the substantive amount of plans, physical copies that we have within Otis. That's something that's definitely a longer term goal and would require significantly more manpower to achieve at a decent clip. But that's something that is really the brass ring we would like to aim for.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And Tom, again, you incorporated this into their budget?
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Chairman. The plotter and the printer scanner I have incorporated into the Otis operating budget. That's right.
Okay, and we're going to consider that obviously because it's over a certain amount.
Well, it's in total, these two items in total combined is over $10,000. So,
Okay.
but I wanted to include all of this for the capital committee, given the high priority that it's been given by the Board of Selectmen. The board has asked me to really make some, affect some efficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
Administrative, operational. So I thought that the full discussion with this committee would be valuable regardless of the cost. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Todd, for your time. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Oh, you as well. Take care.
All right. General discussion about anything? Or are we all set? All right. Hearing none.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I was trying to keep my DiGiorno from burning. As far as general discussion goes, our next meeting date is a week from today. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the good news. And the good news there, let me just, I could add, the good news is that there are no other meetings that night on the 18th. So I believe it's scheduled for 6. So there'll be no time constraints. The committee can get through all of the requests and have a nice, robust discussion.
Okay, and is Highway one of the presentations that night?
I believe it is. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe it is. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's UNF, transfer station, highway, water, sewer, which reminds me actually. So when I saw Rob Churchy at the O'Gara grandstand segment of Saturday's meeting, he explained to me that he would be reviewing all of the parks requests for next year, not just the O'Gara. So I've taken him off for the 18th. Is that your understanding, Chris?
Yeah, he did go over all the other parks while we were there.
So I know Jonathan wasn't there in the beginning, so maybe, and I'm happy to, if Jonathan has some questions of those parks, or Tony as well. Tony wasn't there either. So if there are questions that I can direct to Rob, I'm happy to do that. So just, send me any questions you have in an email and I can get an answer from Rob Churchy.
All right. So the only additional preparation that I'd like to see, that I can come up with off the top of my head right now is as far as highway goes. with the equipment that they're requesting, I think it'd be helpful for Highway to provide a list of current equipment and its condition, and possibly the extent of what it can be used for. Kind of almost similar to what Chief Darren provides us for an inventory of the police vehicles. How he gives us age, mileage, etc. I think it'd be helpful to get that for all the highway equipment as well.
Okay, I can certainly pass that along and have that prepared. Are you talking? Are you through the chair? Is this sort of a one-page just synopsis? The year, make, model, mileage or hours, age, and the brief conditions, assessment. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and I guess just what trucks are available and outfitted with plows and what size plows are on them, and what equipment is outfitted with spreader bodies and what's the capacity of the spreader bodies on them, and just so we can develop a relative picture for evaluating the new equipment being requested.
Understood. Yeah, I can follow up with that before next Thursday's meeting. Have something for the committee.
All right. And
I got a
Tom,
quick question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bob. No, go ahead, Bob.
Just quick question for you, Tom. I'm looking at the FY21 free cash analysis, and under OPEB appropriation and stabilization appropriation as a question mark, how much is that going to impact the final number? Because I see right now we've got $666,446, and if those are question marks, what kind of an impact can we see, or might we expect from that this is actually going to roll out to the final number?
Sure. I actually had sent out what you're looking at, Mr. Serba, is an analysis I sent out, I think, a couple of days ago. Just this afternoon, I sent a more refined analysis because I have some firm numbers now. It should be in your inbox from, I forget, maybe I sent it maybe around 2:00 today. And there's a larger number for the estimated free cash, closer to, I think it was $701,000. The OPEB appropriation, excuse me, it will likely not be made. So the OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. We have a trust, money put aside. This is all intended to help mitigate the future costs of retiree health insurance. I've been trying over the last few years in partnership with the board to put some money, put more and more money into this trust. Typically, we've been doing that in the fall when the new growth number, the actual number, comes in higher than the estimate. But I put the OPEB appropriation there just for the sake of discussion. So that's going to be zero for the spring, and then general stabilization will likely also be zero. And in the spreadsheet I sent this afternoon, I put those zeros in. So it won't impact the bottom line number there.
Okay, one other question is I know that the school has a tendency of coming up forward with the shock value, and oh yeah, by the way, we got to spend this. Do you have any idea? I mean, I know there's a lot of talk, and I know it's a very fluid number, but do we have any idea if they plan on, like blowing some of these numbers out of the water? I mean, I know it's hard to pin you down to a specific because you're not part of that discussion, obviously. But if given past circumstances, is there anything we should be aware of?
Well, yes. There's a pretty robust discussion going on right now about the district using some one-time coronavirus grant funds in fiscal 22, which would end up reducing the minimum local contribution to Spencer for fiscal 22, but we'd have to make it up in fiscal 23. The value of that is about $210,000. So I had a good meeting with the superintendent and Mr. Suter on yesterday. And these grant funds, they first need to be, they can only be authorized by the member towns, first of all. So this is a up or down vote by the Board of Selectmen, either at the March 22nd meeting or on April 12th, I think it is. If the board votes to authorize these grant dollars for, authorize the district to use these grant dollars next year, we end up having to make that up in fiscal 23 essentially, because the fiscal 22 minimum local contribution will go down as an offset, but then it's going to go back up in fiscal 23. So there's some real concern about the use of these grant, from my perspective and the board's perspective, the use of these, one-time grant funds to fund some permanent hirings in the school district. So this is all sort of happening. This discussion is all sort of happening new, for the first time in this week. Last week that the school committee rolled this out end of last week, and so the discussion now is really beginning to get into the details of this. So so I'm giving you, I guess, a long-winded answer, and I apologize for that. But the budget, the municipal budget I have right now has a gap of about $40,000 that I'm able to close with some free cash. That's in the spreadsheet that I sent out this afternoon. So that's a pretty firm number right now, unless things change. So that's, was that helpful? That's where we are right now in discussions with the school district.
No, that was absolutely helpful, and I understand, having been on that side of the coin before, that the school rolls out $4 million Siemens budgets that they sign for, and we end up having to pay for after the fact. So this isn't, I feel bad for anybody that would have to deal with this on a regular basis, to deal with these folks, because it's hard to come up with a budget and figure something out when your partner, and I'm using the term partner extremely loosely, turns around and they say, well, we want to invest in, $500,000 to hire more people for the school. Oh, and by the way, this is going to be our added cost for doing business this year. So, from my perspective, I don't envy it, Tom. It's kind of a train wreck, and I wish we had a partner that was a little more forthcoming instead of getting slammed at the last minute. But I'm just getting up to speed on all of this, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
So this is Gary again. Bob, in simplest layman terms, is in Tom's correct. We're about 43,000 away. Keep in mind, if we forego the 210 this year, we'll be on the hook for that 210 next year, plus any minimum contribution that is required for 2023. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So that's something we're working on now. And we're kicking around some ideas. I have my own thoughts, and there's other thoughts out there. But so that will compound. As far as the other moving points, we're still working on them as far as new hires. But again, that's the districts. And as you know, it's, we're given a bill and we try to work the numbers the best we can. My concern is when it comes to 2023, if we don't have that 210, and if the federal stimulus comes into the state of Massachusetts, I'm not sure what percentage of that the town of Spencer will end up with. So there's a lot of moving parts, but that's the plain and simple easiest way I can put it is we're starting out 2023 210,000 in the hole. unless we put something aside. So that's really where we're at. I think, correct me, Tom, if I'm not explaining it right, but I'm trying to make it simple.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep, that's correct.
No, and I get that, Gary, and I guess it just frustrates the hell out of me because it's like we don't really have a partnership. We have people holding us hostage, it seems, most times, and it's like, regardless of the fact that we're in a pandemic, it's like, well, education moves forward, and it's like we just keep getting hammered. So I guess it's just a little frustration on my part. That's all. But thanks both of you guys for explaining that. I appreciate it.
All right. Any other discussions? Okay, Tom, I have one more point that if you're going to talk to the highway about.
Yep.
I'm just curious because we heard the fire chief saying that his one of his goals is to get the parking lot paved because there's obviously issues over there with missing tar and dirt and things washing away. I know back in the day when I was a kid, they used to have a paver box for the town, and for whatever reason, they no longer have one. Could you just ask them if having a paver box would save the town money? Whether if they could do the fire station maybe during the week and take sections and other parking lots that we have within the town, if that would save some money, having them do it and paving. If they had the correct equipment. I'm sure it's not just a paving box. They're probably going to need a roller of some sort too.
So,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that. The town still does own a paving box. It's actually in the self storage shed. We also still own a small roller. It probably hasn't been run in 10 years. And back when, you were a kid then, but when Fred Davis was our highway superintendent, we also had about 16 highwaymen. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to go look at the parking lot at the fire station. The back section is Bob, when he gave his presentation, section of that was done. And after talking, because I don't understand a lot about paving, when I actually physically went and looked at that lot this afternoon, that is a tear out and rebuild. So to do it in sections would probably cost you more. Jonathan could probably answer that than if you were able to do it in one shot because of the cost of asphalt and trucking it. So, but we do own a box and we do own a roller. They haven't run in 19 years, but I know they are there. So I don't know if that helps. But
the only problem with the town paving anything is that the highway department would need to have people that know how to pave first. Other than that, it's a great idea.
Okay. I'm just trying to see if we can lower capital across the board because I know there's parking lot issues that are not going away, and we know we currently have issues at the fire station, and I'm sure the police station has issues, and obviously the town hall has a little bit of issues in the back. So just a thought. All right, moving along. We're going to review the schedule, Tom. You guys there?
I'm here. So
I'm here.
Okay.
Tony's not, but we're here.
All right. Review the schedule. I guess our next meeting is just the 18th. We kind of went over that already. Do you agree, Tom?
Guessing Tom is having
Oh, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just talking with my phone muted for the last 30 seconds. So, correct. So, yes, next Thursday, March 18th, 6 o'clock is the next committee meeting. And then the meeting after that is scheduled for Tuesday, March 30th at 6. That's the meeting where the committee is scheduled to submit their rankings, individual rankings on each of the projects to me, so I can, along with Brenda, compile them. So that's where we are right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes.
So I guess just to clarify the process here, we should have all of our ranking sheets submitted well enough in advance of the 30th so they can be all compiled for that meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say probably get Tom those that Friday. Would that work, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I can be flexible. I mean, if once the 18th meeting has concluded, the committee can then start its, filling out each of the sheets for the various projects. So if but I can be flexible. If the committee members send me all of their forms early enough, I think this is what Jonathan is asking. Then I can potentially, if I have enough time, I can potentially turn around the one-page composite score, which reflects the ranking numbers from each of the committee members in time for the 30th. Okay. Does that make sense? Yep. So I could do that.
That's, I guess, what would you like to see for a date? By what day do you want us to have them all back to you so you can have it done for the 30th, I guess, because I think that's the most effective way of doing this.
Okay, so if the committee can have them submitted to me by, let's say, Wednesday or Thursday of the following week, that's the 24th or 25th, then that would give me enough time to turn around to aggregate them for the 30th. Okay. Why don't we just say the 25th, Thursday? That would give you a week. If you can send them to me by the 25th, then I'll commit to having them aggregated for the committee's meeting on the 30th. Does that sound fair?
That sounds fine with me.
That works.
Okay. Do you need a vote from us on that, Tom, or just a agreement?
Oh, that's fine. I can. If we're all on the same page, I can make that work.
Perfect. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion by Bob. Do I have a second? I have a second by John. All those in favor, we have to do a roll call. Bob?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you, Tom, for compiling everything for us. We greatly